Urgent, Moscow is on its knees. The Kremlin is begging for peace in Istanbul, but this is not negotiations, it's the despair of defeat. There was no peace and there will be none. Kyslytsya revealed the shocking truth. The Russians came to provoke, not to negotiate. Erdoğan makes his move. Turkey takes on the role of peacemaker. Poland has poured over $4 billion into aid for Ukraine, and China is turning toward the US. The world is abandoning Putin. Everyone is isolating him. Who will finish off the empire, and is this the beginning of the end for the Kremlin? This is Ukraine Today. I'm Zorislava Kolesnikova, and you're watching. Stay with us. All the shocking details of Russia's defeat are coming up in just a moment. Moscow is begging for peace. Russia has announced that it is suddenly ready for negotiations with Ukraine in Istanbul. The Kremlin, which for years threatened and blackmailed, is now asking for a meeting. And it seems they're no longer hiding their desperation. The Russian side, through its acting chargé d'affaires in Turkey, Alexei Ivanov, has stated that it is ready to resume direct negotiations with Kyiv at any moment, if Ukraine demonstrates political will.
The Russian side has repeatedly emphasized that we are ready to continue direct negotiations with the Ukrainian side. And our Turkish partners have consistently stressed that the Istanbul platform remains at our disposal, that these doors remain open to us.
The Kremlin pretends to want peace, but the real reason is clear. Defeats on the front lines, catastrophic losses near Pokrovsk and Kupiansk, sanctions and international isolation are forcing Moscow to ask for dialogue. Ukraine has not yet responded to the proposal. Diplomats remind that previously Moscow had sent Kyiv a number of initiatives, including proposals to create 3 working groups for online communication. However, there has been no response from Ukraine. Kyiv is strictly adhering to its position. First, a ceasefire, and only then negotiations. There was no peace and there was not supposed to be any. Kyslytsya revealed shocking details about the negotiations in Istanbul. The Russians did not come to negotiate, but to humiliate, provoke, and deliberately sabotage everything. While the Kremlin loudly proclaims to the world its readiness for peace, Ukrainian diplomat Sergiy Kyslytsya has shattered this myth. In a comment to The Times, he stated that there were no real negotiations at all. It was nothing but a circus and provocations meant to show the world a mere imitation of dialogue.
They know the biography of each of us perfectly well and deliberately say provocative, nasty things.
According to the diplomat, the Russians would bring complete dossiers on every Ukrainian representative, including their biography, family, and personal details. Their goal is to throw us off balance, disrupt the meeting, and then blame Ukraine for derailing peace. Instead of real agreements, the Russian representatives would suggest creating working groups on WhatsApp.
They wanted to deceive the Americans and create an illusion of progress in order to avoid new sanctions.
The Russians even refused to talk about a ceasefire. The only format they allowed to be discussed was a 2-hour pause to collect the bodies of the dead. Kyslytsya summed it up harshly and without diplomacy.
In a dictatorship, it is impossible to have a meaningful discussion with negotiators who represent a dictator. They come with a strict mandate and are just playing a role.
So the Kremlin never wanted peace. It only wanted a show for the world to pull the wool over everyone's eyes and buy time. Meanwhile, Erdoğan entered the game. Turkey is ready to become a peacemaker between Ukraine and Russia. While the Kremlin begs for negotiations and the world watches Russia's new defeats, Ankara makes a move that could change the course of the war. Turkish President Recep Erdoğan spoke at 2 major international platforms, the UN General Assembly in New York and the TRT World Forum 2021.
And made a series of high-profile statements that quickly drew widespread attention from the public and media alike, sparking significant discussion and debate due to their bold content and the important issues they addressed.
Turkey declared that there are no winners in war, and in a just peace, there are no losers. The president promised that Ankara would continue to make every effort to achieve a ceasefire and create a lasting and just peace.
I hope that in the near future, a compromise will be found between the parties, paving the way for the 2 neighboring peoples to once again live side by side in peace.
Erdoğan is clearly showing who now controls the diplomatic playing field. His country has already played a key role in the grain deal, in the release of prisoners, and even in ensuring the security of the Black Sea.
We will act on the principle that there are no winners in war, and in a just peace there are no losers.
But Turkey has officially confirmed its readiness to host both the Ukrainian and Russian sides. Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan stated that his country has proposed holding a new round of peace talks, which could even include a leaders' summit in Istanbul. It's not only Turkey that wants peace. Since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, Poland has been helping Ukraine. Poland has spent over $4 billion on aid to Ukraine. This is more than the contributions of some EU countries combined. Tanks, aircraft, ammunition, armored vehicles, air defense systems. From the very first days of the war, Warsaw became a true shield for Ukraine. Why is Poland supporting Kiev so decisively, and what role does it want to play in post-war Europe? And will Warsaw become Ukraine's main strategic ally in the future security of the region? All the most important things right now.
Over 120 billion zlotys, or $4 billion, that's the significant amount Poland has spent on aid to Ukraine since the start of the full-scale invasion. This includes both humanitarian and military support.
Poland was one of the first countries to provide Ukraine with tanks, ammunition, and defense equipment on a large scale. In 2022 to 2023, it delivered, among other things, over 300 tanks, as well as armored personnel carriers, artillery systems, air defense systems, drones, mortars, assault rifles, and more than 100 million rounds of ammunition. 10 airplanes and helicopters were also sent to Ukraine. Between 2022 and 2024, Poland provided Ukraine with 47 military aid packages. The value of the equipment delivered in 2022 alone amounted to 7.23 billion zlotys, and in 2023 to 2024, another 5.63 billion. Poland also supplied more than 19,500 Starlink terminals, providing the Ukrainian armed forces with stable satellite communication. This accounted for almost half of all terminals used in Ukraine by the end of 2023.
Poland's assistance to Ukraine is not the result of some romantic fascination, but is very pragmatic. Our neighbors understand that if Ukraine falls, Poland will be next.
After all, a fighting Ukraine gives Europe time to better prepare for threats. This time is needed, and we have no right to waste a single minute. We will be held accountable for every minute.
318 tanks were delivered to Kiev by Warsaw. Among them are modernized T-71, M1R, PT-91, and Leopard 2. This is more than anyone else has provided. The total value of the free aid, including training, logistics, repairs, and medical support, exceeded $4 billion by March of this year. Specifically, in 2022, it amounted to $1.6 billion, and in 2023 to 2024, $1.3 billion. Poland also provided assistance.
Poland's military aid: 586 armored vehicles, 137 artillery systems, 10 Mi-24 helicopters, 10 MiG-29 fighter jets, 287 man-portable air defense systems, 44 air-to-air missiles, over 100 units of small arms, 89 mortars, 4 Grad multiple launch rocket systems, and more than 100 million rounds of ammunition.
In addition to gratuitous aid, in just 2022 to 2023, Ukraine purchased weapons from Poland worth more than 2.2 billion euros. The largest contract was the agreement for 56 KRAP self-propelled howitzers, of which 36 have already been delivered. The countries are establishing joint production of weapons and equipment. The parties have agreed on the joint production of 125mm tank ammunition. There are also plans for joint production of other weapons and military equipment, including the placement of Polish companies' manufacturing facilities in Ukraine.
It is necessary to mobilize the industry. Polish and Ukrainian industries must make joint investments, not only during the war, but also to develop their deterrence potential. These initiatives are very much needed. It is also very important for us to improve economic relations. We support Ukraine.
Poland has become the main hub for supplying weapons to Ukraine. Also during the war, more than 30,000 Ukrainian soldiers have undergone training on the territory of the country. With each year of the war, the assistance and joint cooperation between Poland and Ukraine only grows stronger.
Everyone
voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
Russia is losing more and more of its friends. China has announced a temporary easing of trade tensions with the US by suspending additional tariffs on American goods. The relief will last for a year, but the base tariff remains unchanged. Is this the first step toward a major deal between Beijing and Washington, or just a tactical pause before a new round of the trade war? Why did China suddenly make concessions, and how will this affect the geopolitical game around Ukraine, where both superpowers have long been competing not only economically but also politically? More details in the following report.
Truce or calm before the storm? China has announced the suspension of an additional 24% tariff on American goods. The easing will last for a year. At the same time, the base tariff of 10%, which was introduced in response to a similar tariff by Trump announced in April, the decision to update the agreements was made after a meeting between Donald Trump and Xi Jinping, Reuters reports. Thanks to this, tariffs of up to 15% on certain types of agricultural products from the US were also lifted.
From an economic standpoint, China and the US cannot be in different, let's say, not exactly camps, but be mere workers. In fact, they are in opposing camps because they are competing over which of them is the leading economy.
The Chinese Ministry of Finance stated that they are suspending all tariffs introduced on March 4th on soybeans and other US agricultural products, including corn, wheat, sorghum, and chicken. It was stated that the decision was made in accordance with the consensus reached during economic and trade consultations.
The relationship between China and the United States is an important aspect of international affairs, as interactions between these two countries have a significant impact on global politics, economics, and culture.
The US and China have also agreed to establish direct communication between their armed forces. As stated by Pentagon Chief Pithx, this will help prevent potential conflicts between the countries. Another step China has taken to meet the US halfway is refusing to import Russian oil. According to Bloomberg, large companies and small private enterprises in China have canceled nearly half of their oil shipments from Russia after the US imposed sanctions on Rosneft and Lukoil in October.
And when the question arises of whom China will choose, Russia or the US, one must understand a simple thing. There is the US and its largest state is California. And California's economy is twice the size of Russia's economy, just one state. The US in America is like two Russian Federation economies. Of course, for China, the US is far more important than Russia.
Putin absolutely does not want to let go of one of his few remaining partners, so he sent his prime minister with greetings to Beijing. As a result of the negotiations, the parties signed about 10 documents on cooperation in the fields of energy, space, and high
Technologies are the various tools, devices, and systems that people invent and use to solve problems and make life easier. They include things like computers, smartphones, and machines that help us work, communicate, and live more efficiently. And from America, interestingly, there are losses in the territories.
According to the Ukrainian Foreign Intelligence Service, Russia is sinking ever deeper into economic dependence on China. Raw material projects in the Far East and Siberia are turning the region into a resource base for China, while local communities are left out of the promised benefits.
The world is changing rapidly, and there is no longer a place for Russia in it. The empire is cracking, allies are fleeing, but Ukraine stands firm. We are holding on, fighting, and winning. Like this video and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss the biggest events in Ukraine and the world. See you next time, friends. Together we are writing history.